Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Luqman Haqem. Currently, I'm having my internship in one of the accounting firm in Kuala Lumpur. Based on my 2 months experience there, I found out that there is one big problem that is happening, which is workplace violence problem. So in this presentation, I will explain to you about workplace violence problems, and we will be dividing it into 4 parts: the introduction, the underlying causes, the management theory that relate to the problem, and the recommendation of solution to workplace violence. To start off the introduction, I will show you the statistics about workplace violence. According to a research in 2014 that included 5 nations, more than half of the respondents had suffered at least one incident of physical or psychological violence. Clearly, this is a very alarming problem and need to be addressed. We also need to know about what workplace violence really is. According to US OSHA, workplace violence is defined as violent acts directed toward person at work or on duty that might involve physical or psychological violence. Physical violence include slapping, kicking, shooting, etc., while psychological violence include verbal abuse, sexual and racial harassment, bullying, etc. According to OSHA also, there are 4 types of workplace violence. But we will be focusing more on type 3 workplace violence, which is violent acts between employees in organization. It is also very important for us to know about the effects of workplace violence on individuals and organization. Physical impacts on employee include insomnia, dizziness, and lack of energy. The psychological effects on employee includes poor concentration, extreme emotional distress, and lack of motivation. And lastly, the financial effects on an organization is, according to a study in Denmark, every victimized individual will produce the cost to the organization of at least $13,000 and at most $100,000 annually in the form of absenteeism, loss of company reputation, and poor productivity. Next, underlying causes. There are 3 main underlying causes of workplace violence problem, which are organizational change, negative social climate, and insensitive management. Organizational change. To remain competitive, organizations regularly make changes such as introducing new management teams and major restructurings. These changes will eventually lead to employees being bullied and abused by managers. For example, if an organization decided to change into a more centralized structure, the managers might bring in more authoritarian practices and use more coercive power towards employees. This will directly cause workplace bullying towards employees, such as increasing workloads. Overall, most employees in a lower hierarchical structure will be exposed to workplace violence problem in relation to organizational change. Second cause, negative social climate. Harassment and abuse tend to happen in an environment where there is a negative social climate. Social climate can be determined by 3 factors. The first factor is personality traits. For example, employee with timid and introverted personalities might be a target of verbal abuse by other dominant employees. Second factor is relative power. Managers tend to take advantage on lower level employees by increasing their workloads. And lastly, gender or race. Sexual or racial harassment tend to happen in an environment where there is a dominant employment of only one gender or race. Overall, workplace violence problems tend to happen in an environment where these 3 factors are negatively embedded within the social climate. Third cause, insensitive management. According to a workplace violence study in American hospitals, the underreporting rate of this problem is at an alarming 77%. There are 2 factors of it. The first factor is unawareness of the reporting platforms. Most victims are unsure on how they can make a report about the problems. The second factor is reporting never really lead to changes. Very minimum action have been taken by management based on past experience, and the actions wasn't effective. Overall, victims feel that the current reporting system is not an effective solution to address the workplace violence problem. Next, management theory. There is one management theory that we can relate to the problem, which comes from the behavioral viewpoints as proposed by Mary Parker Foley. So from behavioral viewpoints, we emphasize the importance of understanding the impact of human behaviors on organizations. So Mary Parker Foley was a well-known early behaviorist for her in-depth analysis of conflict situations in organizations. There are 2 of her principles that we can relate to the problem. The first principle is power with rather than power over. Foley believe that rather than establishing a centralized environment, workers should foster cooperation. Managers and employees should be working together as a team rather than based on cohesive hierarchical influence. Her second principle is thinking in terms of whole. Foley believe that employees should value collective effort more to achieve organizational objectives. Employees should be working together with each other in order to develop an outstanding group functioning, and this requires a huge amount of respect between individuals. The last part, recommendation. The solutions need to be provided by considering all the three micro, meso, and macro approach. This is very important in order to provide the best solutions for workplace violence. First, micro approach. Organization need to implement the reporting process through information system. Rather than relying on verbal or written reports to many different managers, it should be integrated within the IS. The databases will be directly controlled by HR department, which will ensure that the necessary actions will be taken to tackle the issues. Next, meso approach. Organization need to establish a written workplace violence prevention policies. According to OSHA, a zero tolerance policy is considered as a minimum requirement of a workplace violence prevention program. Therefore, this policy should be implemented. Next, a zero tolerance assessment team need to be created with the responsibility to revise and create a worksite specific policies that suit the organizations. This two top-down approach will provide a written legal protection for the employees from the workplace violence. Lastly, macro approach. Organization need to empower a positive workplace environment by using positive behavior support model. This model invites employees to cooperate by building a relationship based on dignity and respect. It will motivate employees to change negative behavior through a collaborative process rather than coercion process. As an analogy for this model, rather than removing the bad apples or the bad employees, we will make sure that the barrel is clean first, or the workplace environment. So employees will be motivated to monitor their behavior, thus creating a healthy environment emotionally, psychologically, and physically. That is all from me. I hope that my presentation can give you an insight about workplace violence problem and can help you to understand this problem better in the future. Thank you.